This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman and Riley Smith. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Well, good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. We're so glad you can join us today. In today's episode of Ag Matters PM, Avery and I went out yesterday to the grand opening and ribbon cutting for Landus's new innovation connector. We have comments from Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag and Landus CEO Matt Karstens. We'll also have a look at that ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down those markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Well, we're at the close of another trading day this week. A bit of a turnaround today, as yesterday there was a bit of an overreaction to some market reports that came out. So for a bit of analysis on that, we go to Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. Jim, what are we seeing in those grain markets right now?
We saw a very volatile trade today, Riley. If people notice in the overnight market, we saw some overnight strength in the market. And then when the CPI number came out today, which was red hot at 9.1% inflation, a lot higher than the average trade guess of 8.8 and quite a bit higher than last month. So inflation continues to run at 40-year highs. That caused a general knee-jerk reaction of selling of pretty much all commodities in the stock market. And that drove the market down to make new lows for the overnight market. But then later in the session, after we kind of traded that news, we did find a little bit of firmness showing up, especially in the corn and beans. Wheat did find some strength earlier than it kind of closed week. But the corn and beans right now, what they're looking at, Riley, is the weather. The midday model kind of confirmed the pattern that looks like it's in place right now. If you're in the western part of the Corn Belt, western to the southwestern portions of Iowa into the Dakotas and Missouri, Kansas and Nebraska, not a lot of rains in your forecast for the next week to 10 days. The eastern Corn Belt is in a little bit better shape as you're going to get some ridge riders that ride above the top end of that heat dome and bring some rain to the eastern Corn Belt. So that is something we need to be watching. Only about 15% of the corn had been pollinated at the beginning of the week. So we're in that critical phase for the corn pollination. So any dryness and lack of dryness and heat combined may help put a little bit of a bid under the market.
Right, and I've talked with several agronomists across the state recently. We've been talking about how it's peak pest season right now. We've got corn rootworm coming out. There's Japanese beetles out everywhere, and so it's not great timing for that, especially as we get into pollination season. And of course, like you said, we're trading on a weather market. So with that, dry bias, how much damage could we see to those market prices?
Well, what you're looking at right now is, let's look at the balance sheet, what they did yesterday. The government pretty much plugged in the acreage number that we knew that we got here at the end of June. They left the trend yield of corn at 177, which would tie the best crop ever. So when they're all done making adjustments, they did cut the old crop feed and residual use by 25 million. The net effect is you're going to have a carryout right about 1.45 billion bushels, a shade smaller than this old crop at this point in time. But that's if we maintain a 177 yield. If we would start losing yield due to pests, due to dryness, due to heat stress, whatever it is, if that yield does start to slide, this corn market may have to go up a little bit higher to ration out demand. The other wild card is still on the demand side of the equation. The USDA chose to leave demand alone on this balance sheet, Riley. But the reality is we really don't have a good handle of what's going on in the Ukraine. Right now, the Ukrainians, the Russians, and the Turkish are trying to meet to get these grain corridors open. There's a few people that believe that they will get grain out of there. I am not one of them. I do not believe the Ukrainians are going to allow the world to demine those ports as long as they're at war with Russia. So if you can't get that grain out of the Ukraine, hopefully that will essentially force more demand in the United States, which would mean that potentially the USDA is underestimating export demand. So this balance sheet could really change dramatically. But the first step we'll be watching is the weather. And like I said, if we stay warm and dry into this key pollination period, I think there's a good shot you could see a decent rally. If you're a producer that needs to make that, feels like they've missed some of the marketing opportunities, I think if we do get this weather-driven rally, do not be afraid to pull the trigger and sell some grain, because overall the macro economy definitely feels a little bit weak due to the the Fed fighting inflation and raising interest rates, which historically is negative to the markets.
All right, and what are we seeing on the other side of the marketplace in the livestock complex?
On the livestock complex, we continue to see more of a sideways trade. The hogs are working to the high end of their trading range, as you're seeing a little bit better demand for the pork. We got to keep an eye on the U.S. dollar. If the dollar would weaken a little bit, that would help the export sales. But in general, the livestock market continues to be more of a sideways trading range, and I kind of look for that to happen. The consumers, they're kind of being pinched on the high end of just inflationary talk, but we are seeing some weakness in the energy market. Actually, the price of gas has dropped about 75 cents. The highs made a little over a month ago, so that hopefully will put a little bit more money into the consumer's bank account and help encourage them to be a little bit more aggressive buyer of maybe the higher end of cuts. Right now, we are hearing reports that the consumers are shying away from the higher end cuts, going to a little bit more cheaper pork and beef products.
All right, lots of great information today. For those of our listeners and our watchers who would like to learn more and get in touch with the folks at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
You can reach me directly at 815-665-0461 or reach any of the Ag Market team members at 844-424-6758.
All right, Jim, it was great talking with you today, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you for having me on.
That again was Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. We'll go ahead and take a look at those closing market numbers. Those come to us courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. September corn is up 6 even at 600 even. December corn up 8 3/4 at 595 1/4. August soybeans up 16 1/2 at 1484 3/4. November soybeans up 6 1/2 at 1349 1/2. Soybean meal up 12.40 at 437.20. Soy oil down 1.11 at 59 even. September Chicago wheat is down 3 1/2 at 810 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat down 5 even at 913 3/4. Kansas City hard red wheat down 5 1/2 at 867 1/4. And September oats down 1 1/4 at 462 even. On the Merc, August live cattle are up 20 cents at 136.87. August feeders up 122 at 180.80. July lean hogs up 90 cents at 114.50. August pork cutout up 112 at 114.65. And Class 3 milk up 4 cents at 22.70. And that's been a check of the Ag Market Recap here on Ag Matters PM. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, Avery and I were at yesterday's opening ceremony and ribbon cutting at the new Landus facility in downtown Des Moines. We have some comments from Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag and Landus CEO Matt Karstens. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Well, like I said earlier, yesterday was the grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony for Landus's new Innovation Connector in downtown Des Moines. Lots of political figures, representatives around the state, and higher-ups in Landus were there in attendance just to share some comments on the facility, an amazing-looking building that they have going on, the partnership with the city that's going on there as well. And, of course, Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag was there. He gave some comments on what this means for producers across the state and just for Iowa's ag industry in general.
This is wonderful, and I want to congratulate Landus Cooperative, and I told Matt, I said, the only time I run into him, it seems like, is when we're launching something, announcing something, cutting a ribbon on something, and I love that. Here's the thing I know, and I get a chance to travel all across the state. I'm on farms, I'm in businesses and schools and communities, and the one thing, of course, we all know being involved in agriculture is what's the only constant in agriculture? Change, right? Agriculture is in a constant state of renewal. Think of the excitement that brings. Now it brings challenges too. We all know that, right? And there's some headwinds that we've got coming at us. But I think you would be challenged to find an industry that is so meaningful to so many people everywhere in the world, and yet also is in a constant state of renewal and innovation. So I actually just this morning attended the board meeting for America's Cultivation Corridor, I was once again reminded of, we have something that, I tell you what, you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere in the world. There are other agriculture centers in the world. There are other bread baskets in the world. But there are very few places that have a combination that we have here in Iowa. So we've got the natural resources that allow us to be incredibly productive, but that doesn't make us entirely unique. But we then have this convergence of world-class, industry-leading companies, global companies that are present in the state of Iowa. We've got an ecosystem that's developing for startups and innovators. We've got world-class research institution, Iowa State University, and we have some of the most productive and innovative farmers on the planet. And we can do all that within very close proximity, right? I would say we can get you on a farm in really a matter of minutes. And if you're in the ag tech space in particular, and you're not in Iowa, you are missing out. And that is a great thing for us to be able to say is, what are you waiting for? Get to the state of Iowa and put down some roots, and you'll find out how connected you can be. And of course, all of us in ag also have a great responsibility, and I think that's the right way to put it, a great responsibility to then connect with consumers and with the public to explain what we do, the realities of what it takes to manage risks, to deal with things that we can't control. We were just talking about the weather, right, up in Early and Emmitsburg area where I farm, and can't control the weather. What we have to do is try to manage risk around those things that we can't control. And what does it take to do that? Well, it's all about innovation and tools and products and programs and financial tools that we can use to be successful and manage through that. So this Innovation Center, this concept, really puts a foot forward to say, how can we tell a story about what we do in ag, how important the cooperative system is in that, and really connect with consumers in a lot of different ways. So that's certainly one of our missions at the Iowa Department of Ag, and I want to commend Landus and the whole leadership team and the farmers involved for this kind of investment in this place, right here in Des Moines. Makes a lot of sense. And I'm excited to think about what that can mean and what it will mean to connect with consumers well into the future. So congratulations. I'm happy to be here to be able to help kick things off today. And I just want to thank you all for this really important investment. Thank you very much.
Landus CEO Matt Karstens also gave some comments before they finally cut the ribbon for the new facility. He talked about how this innovation connector will allow them to embrace change in agriculture and bring that technology closer to the ones who will use it.
This is not common. This is different. But as Secretary Nag says, it's time to be different. Change is inevitable. And I'd love for us as a company to be able to keep doing the same things we've been doing forever. But that's not going to get us to this finish line. We've got to be different. We've got to think in a different way. And innovation is at the core of that journey. And there's so many pieces of innovation. And what I'm quite tired of is that most of the ag innovation gets stopped before it gets to the farmer. Taken out of the hands of this small company or one individual and bred into a large organization and put into the Wall Street Journal that we talked about. That's not agriculture. And no, when we started this cooperative, now 7 years ago, John, I think it is 6, 7 years ago, when the founding co-ops began many, many, many years ago, this was never on the radar. Heck, I think for most of Iowa, in ag retail, this isn't on the radar. But it's time for change. It's time to put our farmers in the center of that discussion and stop some of these opportunities from going all the way to Wall Street and keep it right here in Iowa, like Secretary Nag said. And it's the role of a co-op to do that. It's expensive. It's painful. It's not normal. But it must happen. And I couldn't be more excited to share this opportunity with all of you today. And again, just a big heartfelt thanks to my team. Anyone can come up. My wife and I, Shanda, had the vision and dream of, could this be possible someday? And where would it make sense? I got to tell you, never thought downtown Des Moines would be that at the time. But then the team made it happen. And I want to single out Mary Harrington, I want to single out Erica. I want to single out Andy. These are folks that work tirelessly for this dream, and many others that aren't here today that I would screw up if I had to go down the entire list. But they believe that this is possible. And I also want to thank our board. It takes a lot of guts for 12 farmers to go, I think I can see this. I don't know how they saw it. I'm not sure I would have given us this kind of wiggle room to do this, but that board believed that today was possible. And two of them are in the room with Sue, and where's Ryan? Sue Tronchetti and Ryan Brisley. You both were on the board when you made this decision. I hope you're proud. If not, don't talk about it, okay? Too late. But I do want to thank them. And also, again, I want to thank the city of Des Moines. They made this financially possible. This was the first lease the city's ever done in helping compensate to make this dream a reality. Normally it takes building. We leased, and they stood beside us. Now, I would be remiss not to say COVID didn't help a little bit there, but they open-armedly welcomed us into this community and saw the vision of not only what it could mean for consumers or the city of Des Moines and surrounding areas, but for companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft that they're out going to see, trying to entice here. And I also want to thank our legislators. I saw Ned, Jesse. Thank you for your belief and support of this. It takes a village to pull this off, because I can assure you the power of what you're going to see here is not just about Landus. It's about everyone coming together. And I also want to single out Des Moines Water Works. Some of you know we haven't had quite the best relationship with them, but we've all put that beside and behind us and decided that there is a better path forward, that it doesn't involve legal rooms or law. It involves talking and doing things jointly and finding the common ground and changing the narrative on both sides. Ag needs to find some common ground. Consumers need to find some common ground. And we're on that journey, not just here, but about 1.5 miles away, where corn and soybeans are being raised in a very public park that they also pull drinking water out of. So thank you to all those folks. It means a lot to all of us.
That again was Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag and Landus CEO Matt Karstens. As for right now, let's go ahead and take a look at that ag weather outlook. Well, this morning as I stepped outside, the weather was beautiful, the temperature was just right, and that continued for a good chunk of the day. As of right now, we're still in the mid to upper 80s, which, I mean, if you're me, is a nice temperature. I like those warmer temperatures anyways. But this warmer trend will continue. We're supposed to be seeing some higher temperatures coming this week and into the next. And of course, that's a little bit of poor timing with pollination season. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours. As you can see from the National Weather Service, we'll be seeing some nice conditions for a little bit. Today we'll have sunny skies and warmer conditions, highs in the mid-80s to about 90 degrees. Tonight we'll have mostly clear skies across the state, lows ranging from the upper 50s to upper 60s. Tomorrow, expect sunny skies with temps hotter in the west, those highs ranging from the mid-80s to lower 90s. On the affiliate weather map, as you can see for tomorrow, Cherokee will be sunny with a high of 91, Shenandoah sunny as well with a high of 92, Des Moines sunny and 91, Waterloo sunny and 85, Albia sunny and 89, and Clinton, you guessed it, sunny and 82. For more detailed forecasts in your part of the state, make sure to check in with your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been a check of the Ag Weather Outlook, and that also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can find our video content and previous episodes of AM/PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget our free twice daily market podcast on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Avery Haskell and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.